Welcome back, geometry, to another section of coordinate geometry. This time, the slopes of parallel and perpendicular lines for CG4. And for this, we're going to remember our slope formula from last time was that m equals the change in y over the change in x. So the difference in our y's divided by the difference in our x's. Remember, we can think of this as rise over run, or the delta y, the change in y, over the change in x. Okay, so these are all different ways to think of the same thing. Change in y over change in x. So from a graph, it's often easier just to think of simple change in y, how far do I go up versus how far do I go over. So we pick two clearly defined points. So it looks like the y-intercept here is at 0, 1. And I look for another clearly defined intersection. So it looks like here at -2, -2 is another one. You can pick any 2 points that are on the line, but it's easiest if you pick ones that are easy to tell what they are. So this point here at 0, 1, and this one here at 2, -2. We have to go down 1, 2, 3 units, down 3 units for every 2 that we go over. So our rise is a -3, and our run is 2. Okay? So -3 over 2 is the slope of this line. It falls as we go from left to right as a negative slope. For this one, we have these two clearly defined points at 1, -1, and at 4, 3. And we can count how far do we go up, 1, 2, 3, 4, versus how far we go over, 1, 2, 3 to the right. So 4 up and 3 over gives us a slope of 4 over 3. Okay? Rise on top, run on bottom. You can find that same thing by subtracting your y's, like 3 minus a -1 is 4, and 4 minus 1 is 3. When we have a graph, it's often easier to just count. But if we're just given 2 points, not a graph, then we'll just use the numbers. So difference in our y's on top, difference in our x's on bottom. So 4 minus 0 is 4, and a 3 minus a -2, minus a minus is plus, so 5. 3 plus 2 is 5. So there's our slope, 4/5. For this next one, m equals, subtract your y's on top. This time I'm going to go the 3 first, 3 minus 4, and 5 minus a -1. Make sure that whatever order you subtract in, because you can change the order, but whatever order you subtract in on top, you have to go in the same order on bottom. So if I put the 3 first on top, I need to put the 5 first on the bottom, because the 3 and the 5 are from the same coordinate. So 3 minus 4 is a -1, 5 minus 1 is 6. So a -1/6, or sorry, 5 minus a -1 is 6. So -1/6 is the slope of the line that passes through those 2 points. Not only can we find slope when given 2 points on a line, we can be given an equation of a line and tell what the slope is, especially if it's in points or in slope-intercept form or point-slope form. So this one's in slope-intercept. Remember, the y equals mx plus b. The m is our slope, so 3 is our slope. M is 3. This is the standard form of a line. This is not in slope-intercept form, so we don't yet know what the slope is. It's not 3, it's not 4. Even though the 3 is the coefficient on x, we're looking for the coefficient on x when y is alone, when y is by itself. So we have to solve for y in this one. So we're going to subtract 3x to get 4y equals a -3x plus 12. And yes, I put the x term first. You could write 12 minus 3x here, but since our form we're trying to get it into is this mx plus b, I want my x term before my constant. And addition is commutative. We can switch the order. We'll put the x term first. Then when we divide by 4, y equals -3 divided by 4 is -3/4 x. We can actually distribute when we divide, because dividing by 4 is the same as multiplying by 1/4, and multiplication has the distributive property. So -3 divided by 4 is -3/4, and 12 divided by 4 is 3. But that doesn't affect the slope. The slope is just the number in front of x when y is by itself. So y equals mx plus b. We now have it in the right form. So we can now say our slope is -3/4. Now, that's all review. That's all what we've done up to this point. This is also going to be some review from algebra, but maybe we've forgotten at this point. The slopes of parallel lines are the same. Slopes of parallel lines are the same. When they're parallel, they go up or down at the same rate. They don't ever intersect. The slopes of perpendicular lines, these intersect at a right angle, and the slopes of perpendicular lines are, and we mentioned this when we talked about rotations, the slopes of perpendicular lines are opposite reciprocals. Opposite reciprocals. So, for instance, if the slope of one line is 2/3, the opposite reciprocal, opposite means make it negative, reciprocal means flip it upside down, so opposite reciprocal would be a -3/2. Okay, so opposite reciprocal. Okay, we flip it and make it negative. So for example, find the slopes of the lines that are parallel and perpendicular to the given information. So if we're given this line here, it has a slope of 2/3. So the slope of this line is 2/3. So the slope of a parallel line, parallel lines have the same slope. So a parallel line would also have a slope of 2/3. The perpendicular slope is going to be the opposite reciprocal, -3/2. Opposite, make it negative, reciprocal, flip it. Here, the slope is 3, so the parallel line would have a slope of 3 as well. Parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular, the slope's going to be the opposite reciprocal. Opposite, make it negative, reciprocal, flip it. And to flip an integer, remember integers can always be written as themselves over 1, so the reciprocal is 1 over the number, so 1/3. So -1/3 would be the perpendicular slope. For this one, in order to find the slope, we first have to get y by itself, like we did up here. So we need to get the y by itself. Subtract 2x. So 7y equals a -2x plus 14. Divide by 7. Y equals a -2/7 plus 2. So this line has a slope of -2/7. So the parallel line, any parallel line, will have a slope of also -2/7. And the perpendicular would have a slope of the opposite reciprocal, +7/2. So change the sign and flip it, +7/2. For this one, in order to find our slope, we need to, well, we're given 2 points. So like we did up here, we're going to subtract our y's, subtract our x's. It's the difference in our y's, so -5 minus 3 over difference in our x's, 0 minus 2. -5 minus 3 is a -8. 0 minus 2 is a -2. Negative divided by a negative is a +4. So the parallel line would have a slope of 4 as well. Parallel lines have the same slope. And then the perpendicular lines, the slope would be the opposite reciprocal, -1/4. Okay. Opposite, make it negative, reciprocal, flip it upside down. Integers, we just put 1 over the number. These last couple problems here, 5, 6, 7, and 8, I want to go through together in class. So we'll stop here for now, and we'll pick up there when we meet in class. I'll see you then.